Hello and welcome to a special off-season edition of Cat's Whiskers TV. We'll be looking at the import rule changes and some of the roster changes that have taken place throughout the Elite League a little later on. Plus we'll finish with your Ask CWTV questions that you sent in to us this week. But first we're going to start with the great news that the Panthers will be competing in the new European Champions League next season. And I think after it was first announced, there was a little bit of trepidation, but I think as more information came out about it, it's been wholly positive since then.
I think you're right. When it first came out, I was like, oh, here we go again. After last season and the problems it may or may not have caused us. But when you look at when the majority of the games are essentially pre-season for us, given that we've just found out we are the 44th out of 44 seeds, I don't think we've got much of a chance of progressing, if I'm honest, but that's me being cynical and pessimistic as ever.
I think at that, I think looking at some of the other teams that are involved, and I think that's where the sort of glamour comes in. It's you've got the likes of Ice Baron Berlin, Bern, Angolstadt. You know, it's a really stacked competition.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's something to be proud of. You know, let's be honest, we're only in it because Belfast turned the opportunity down. I think that's mainly due to ice time or
maybe Anton Decker.
I've always been a fan of them. But you know, so
Geordie
really,
belters.
You know, and I know some people aren't impressed that just because Belfast turn it down, the Panthers then take it up. But for me, it's nice to have a representative of the Elite League, and it's great, obviously, from our point of view that it's the Panthers. But I mean, you know, let's celebrate the fact that an Elite League team is in that competition, and it's a very exciting competition. There's going to be the chance to see some really top-end quality hockey, and I don't think, from a Panthers point of view, we're expected to get through. But I think it's about putting our name out there and showing us, the team, and the league that we play for in a good light, and hopefully we can do that.
And look at the experience we're going to get from playing teams like Ice Baron, like Cologne,
Krefeld,
and people like that. You know, it's certainly not going to do us any harm, is it?
No, I can only see positives.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen DEL hockey in recent seasons, and let's be honest,
it's a bit good.
It's a bit good, and the chances are, if we draw one of the German teams, we probably are going to get beaten. But you know, the chance of playing Ice Baron Berlin or Cologne Sharks next door, I mean, that's what excites me. That's why I want to go and watch these games.
In my eyes, it's all about progression. It's all about testing yourself. It's about moving forward. If to be honest, if every team in the Elite League was happy with just, you know, turning up on a Saturday and a Sunday playing the other 9 teams in the Elite League, then, you know, really, is that, you know, it just shows a lack of ambition to me.
I think there are some out there, but look at what it can do for our recruitment as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know,
just what I was going to say next. Beat me to it.
It's, you know, we can say we're going to be playing in Europe.
And I think, for me, I mean, I think a lot of the negativity when it first announced was probably due to the Continental Cup last year. As we've said, it's pre-season. The games are more spread out. It's not like chunks of 3 games all together. And that, I think, is what makes it far more attractive.
I mean, do you think it'll affect the size of our roster?
Possibly, I think we'll touch on this later when we look at the import changes. However, I would like to think we have the budget available to be able to go with 4 lines. Certainly from the start of the season, when we're in the pre-season and we're playing in the first Champions League qualifiers. If that means probably going with a couple more Brits in the forward line, so be it. I think we could only benefit, and I think we saw with the injury crisis last season what a difference probably playing 4 lines last season would have made. Because even if the 4th line's only getting a couple of shifts a period, it's still a rest that your top players are getting.
It takes the pressure off. off the other team. I mean, I think we will see a few more extra onto the roster.
If you look at it, I think all our opponents will be playing 4 lines.
Well, they will.
Yeah.
Because, they've all got bigger budgets.
Well, I think they listed the budgets, and when they listed them, I think it's easy to see why we're the 44th seed. Actually, I think one of them 54 million euros budget.
Wow,
that's
nice.
But that's what 3/4 of the Elite League think we're paying out anyway.
well, that's a good point.
But it's like, it's about testing yourself, isn't it? At the end of the day, bring on the underdog, isn't it? Really, and
what have we got to lose?
Exactly,
Yeah.
and I think, like we've touched on, it's people are a bit more optimistic now that we fully understand, the rules, how it's going to be, how it's going to play out, etc. And look, really, we could be out of it by a couple of weeks into the Elite League season, so it might not make any real dent into our league. And
well, if you think about it, we played the tournament in Holland pre-season last year with a couple of games, so
I think it'd be interesting to see who Corey and Gary recruit for this, because like Paul says, it's a great opportunity to go out there and say, look, you can showcase your talent against Europe, really. So I think it's positive.
So to finish on, the draw takes place next week, May the 21st, next Wednesday. Who would you like to see in Panthers group? I would like to see one of the DEL teams. I really would like to see a DEL team.
I think as well, because I know it's not for a fan jolly.
No,
but you get a DEL team, they're fairly. I mean, we've managed it. They're fairly easy games to get to, especially if you've got somebody like Cologne in it.
Cologne,
If Cologne in it, it's a lovely place. Much better than Dusseldorf.
Yeah. I wouldn't recommend Krefeld, but the arena's nice.
Yeah, no else to do.
To be honest, I would love one of the top seeds.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean,
we'll take anybody basically.
I think looking at the pots, you are pretty much going to get a top seed anyway. But why not test yourself against the best? And if we put up a good show, then I think we'll do ourselves proud. And
it's like I say, pressure's off. We're 44th seed. I think if we get a couple of wins, I think that'll be a success for us.
We're stood here talking about that we haven't got a chance of doing it, so
we just need caution to the win.
It's 60 minutes. It's 60 minutes. Anything really can happen, and we're not even halfway through the off season now, but I think when pre-season training camps come in, I think there's going to be a buzz and a real positivity about there to go out and give it a go. So I don't care who we get, to be honest. I think the bigger the better for me.
Yeah, I think he's right.
Yeah. So as I say, draw takes place on May the 21st, next Wednesday, and then the first game will take place around the 23rd of August. We're going to look at the new Elite League import changes that were brought in very recently by the league. For those that don't know, the import limit has been increased to 12. Still 11 work permits, but 1 EU national or dual national. For the subsequent 2 seasons, there will be an increase of 1 of dual nationals or EU nationals, which will mean a total of 14 imports in season 15-16. So, what do you think?
I'll let you start this time.
I think this is, it's caused a lot of debate, shall we say.
Quite emotive at times.
Yeah, and I think this is down to, the news comes off the back of, the GB team. Would you say underperforming? Then I think fourth in that league was an underperformance on their part. I think you would have expected them from being relegated last season. I think gold was beyond. I think I did say gold would have been nice, but it would have been a surprise. But I think a bronze or silver medal should have been the expectation. Yeah. Well, coming off that, I think everybody then talks about player development in the GB system. There's not enough Brits coming through, and then the Elite League then announced that you can have an extra EU import basically.
Yeah.
That's obviously going to get people's backs up a little bit. For me, I mean, it's very a grey area because you don't really know until the teams actually get their rosters and recruit. It doesn't necessarily mean that Brits are going to suffer. You might, people might think about it, and people might see that on the outside and automatically go, well, Brits are going to suffer, which, with player movement that we've seen so far, might be an issue with it. But for me, what I would say is, if a Brit is good enough,
they'll play,
and at whatever age they will play, or they should play.
I mean, I think we discussed in the last segment about the Champions League of the hope that Panthers might go up to 4 lines, and this is the other thing that comes from it. Could teams possibly increase to 4 lines? Maybe not some of the sort of the sort of Edinburgh's or Halls of this world, but I'd like some of the sort of bigger budget teams. Would be nice to see them probably increase to 4-line hockey.
For me, and it sort of ties into both bits, I think this is essentially entirely a financial.
Yeah, I think. I think it's all to do with the demand for top-end Brits outstripping the supply, which means that the top-end Brits can bump up their wage demands. I'm guessing. I think it was very, very interesting as well that when it was announced, there was a explosion on Twitter from British players.
Some British players, yes.
Right, so some British, yes, I think some British players who dead against it. But on the other hand, to play devil's advocate, do you think, well, your gravy train has just been stopped a little bit?
Well, and that's why they're probably getting up in arms to an extent, because they've been able to, because they know that there aren't many players at their level about in that GB area. So they can say, right, you want me, you pay this. All of a sudden, they're going to go, no, I won't say what a certain player from Belfast described a player from Slovakia down in Slovakia.
Yes.
They can get him for half the price. Yeah, but it's, we're talking about British players. It's very interesting. Correct me if I'm wrong here. But yes, there was a lot of. I mean, if Robert Dowd and Chris Blight are on the same team next season, that'll be interesting.
It will be interesting after their little spat on Twitter.
Make of it what you will. It's only just come to me. I could be wrong. I didn't see a single Panthers player moan about it.
No.
We've got the well-mannered ones.
And just to do a bit of a name drop, I spoke to Tom Norton last week because I was playing ball hockey with him. Thank you. And I sort of asked him because it was just after he'd left, and his reaction was, "It is what it is, and I'll go where I can get the ice." So not a hint of bitterness. He didn't feel bad. He basically wanted to do what was best for him, and I think the way he handled himself and the club as well in the press releases over that was with great class and dignity.
But I mean, for me, talking about top end Brits demanding a fee, because in the past you could say that they know that they're more likely going to get that because of what's out there. If you're good enough and you're worth that, then they'll pay it.
Yeah, of course.
So if you were an ice hockey player and you were a Robert Dowd, a Rob Lakovic, a Craig Peacock, these type of young not upcoming because they're already established, but upcoming Brits that we're going to see for the future. If you're good enough for that talent and you're worth that money, then they'll pay that anyway. Because
this rule isn't going to change that.
No, they're not.
But there are going to be teams who are going to look, right, we're paying that person that amount of money. What can we get for less?
Yeah, but then that takes, in my eyes, that player then has to go, right, well, I've got 2 options here. Either I know that I've been riding on a wave that I can get away with earning a bit of money and, not developing to a higher level, or spur that on to go, well, do you know what, I actually believe in my ability and my aim is to become a top end Brit, and I believe that I am due that that money. So it's how you look at it is from a player.
And I think that's why you've been getting some of the comments, some of the, frankly at times, xenophobic comments, because they're worried. They're thinking, all of a sudden, do I deserve what I've been getting? Yeah. I don't know.
Sorry.
No, I was going to say to look at it differently. There was obviously that created a lot more debate about development of British players, and I think this is where we have to look a lot lower than the elite league. Definitely. And the thing is, you have to say, well, you know what? There's not that we said demand outstrips supply of top end Brits. So what's going to do? What needs to happen? Instead of saying what's wrong, what needs to happen to ensure that in the next sort of 4, 5, 6 years we are going to start getting a supply of top end Brits through.
That's it. This can't. Whilst I can see why this money, it can't be done in isolation. There's got to be something else in place, and don't ask me what it is because I haven't got a clue. But so that 3-4 years down the line, when this is reviewed again, to go, right, well maybe we can drop the import level down again because we've got all these players coming up who can take those roles.
And I think that is mentioned in the press release that they do. They'll continue to review. And for me, like Paul says, you can't treat this in isolation. You've got to think. And Paul Thompson I know he's been in contact with us about player development and something that he feels very strongly about. And at the end of the day, there's money that's got to be ploughed somewhere in your under 10s, your real junior hockey.
It's got to start right.
What you can say is that it's similar to football in the fact of they've got to plough money in grassroots football. Hockey, we've got to chuck money. Whether that's 50 grand or whether it's 5 million, it's still investment. Investment is needed in junior hockey.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this could just be a stopgap to improving that.
I'd love to see.
We don't want to hear you talk.
We just keep talking at the top. But I'd love to see better lines of communication between the elite league teams and the teams below, not almost like a farm system. I know it's difficult because they're not actually going to own. But all
it takes is some communication. Because the thing is, you've got the elite league, then you've got the EPL, and then you've got the English Ice Hockey Association that overlooks all that, and you've got Scottish Ice Hockey Association, and they're just not talking to each other.
No.
With a bit of joined up thinking, you could get that pathway going through, and I think it's not beyond the realms of possibility to have that link. So you've got your elite team that are linked to an EPL team, that are linked to an ENL team, that are linked to a junior system, and then you've got a straight line up. Look at Sheffield.
Well, I was just going to say
Sheffield have got teams at every single level of ice hockey, every single one, from juniors right through to the Steelers in the elite league. They don't talk to each other.
No.
I mean, we only have to look at the fiasco with the Steel Dogs and Jeff Leguiz signing, and then the juniors.
Yeah, but if you look back through history, how many players that have come up through this junior system in Sheffield have ended up playing for the Steelers?
Not many at all.
I would make 2 points there, because I think in relation to the Steelers and the Steel Dogs, I think everybody's fully aware that there's been friction, or they've not had that relationship which you would think they would have. But to be fair to Tony Smith, when this whole Jeff Leguiz came out, he said that hopefully this is the start of building a relationship with the Steel Dogs, and maybe it needs something.
They didn't start it very well.
I know, but maybe it takes something like a Jeff Leguiz, moving there to start that rebuilding process. And for me, Sheffield are probably the team that if I would worry for my Brit development, because with all due respect to Hewitt, Phillips, Thomas. I mean, you could even say Saric now because he's dual national. they're not getting any younger, and I don't see where that, your Rob Lakovich, just to use Craig Peacock, is coming from their point of view. So the relationship that they could possibly have with the Steel Dogs, because they have the perfect opportunity, is crucial to the whole player development. Forget about the import of the EU. That's still where it needs to be.
We've got to make it easier for those that have got the determination and the ability to rise to the top.
And I think that comes down to coaching at that level. And I think it has been highlighted that maybe the coaching at that level isn't as good as what it could be. So that's probably where I think the investment needs to be, certainly at the grassroots level. That's where you need to start the investment. Certainly not at the top, because it won't trickle down.
Well, you paper it over the cracks at the end of the day, aren't you? And there's only so many times that you can paper over cracks until it's fully exposed. And talking about that junior development and the coaching of that side, look at the documentary that was on Premier Sports last night. Excellent documentary. But you look at that and you see how the young lads performed and how
there was a real pride there, wasn't there?
Exactly.
A real pride to perform for the shirt.
And look, we are a country, unfortunately, that automatically goes straight for the negative. We always see the negative in everything, whether it's 90% positive or 10% negative. We will always hone in on the 10% negative. Look, the Elite League have obviously done something that they feel is needed to happen at this time, at this present. But you're not saying that Corey Nielsen's then going to go and dump,
No.
Your Nortons. I know Norton's moved on, but you read the press release and Nielsen was a bit, wasn't Nielsen's.
It was Tom's own decision,
which is fair play to him, because I think it's a very brave thing, and it's quite positive and refreshing that a player's took the responsibility on himself to go, well, I need more ice time to develop. But Corey Nielsen might not then go, well, I'm forgetting about all the Brits. It's down to the coaches at the end of the day. The Elite League's put that in place, but if a coach wants a Brit and personally thinks that Brit is good enough, he will have that Brit. That's my opinion anyway.
Okay. Probably moving on, slightly related, but we've seen a few players drop to the EPL, and I think one of the high-profile ones, of course, Jeff Le Guy, as we've already mentioned, going to the Sheffield Steel Dogs. I think a personal decision from a fitness point of view and a job point of view. And I think after the horrendous injury he got towards the end of last season.
I think one thing we can say is that that's not connected to the changes in the input.
No, definitely not. No. Of course, another high-profile one was, of course, Danny Myers signing for Guildford. I must admit that surprised me. I expected him to remain at the Steelers, and I think a lot of Steelers fans did as well. And there's quite a lot of surprise when that one was announced.
I mean, for me, this whole players dropping out of the Elite League to the EPL, and people up in arms going, well, it just shows a lack of respect from the player, or it's a player giving up and stuff like that. I don't buy that personally. I have two views on it. From a player's point of view, take the two examples that you've just, Jeff Le Guy got to an age where he thought, my body's telling me that I can't really compete at the Elite League to the level that he previously set, and I think that's a big thing. When you're a player and you've played at a level and you've performed at that level, to see yourself maybe drop a few standards, that's hard to take. And I wouldn't say most players want to just dwindle down their career playing for the Steelers, not performing to the level that they've performed at. He's just had a kid. Family life and the future plays a big part in my eyes of these decisions. Again, moving on to Danny, he's not getting any younger. Personally, I still think he had a couple of good years left in the Elite League, but he took a decision to move back down south, where he's originally from, take his family, take his business. It's a life decision.
And that's the thing, I think, because obviously the EPL is semi-professional, so he's part-time, probably training 2 or 3 times a week, a couple of games a week. They have a chance to probably do something out, do another job. Danny, as you say, he's got his own business. He'll be able to do that. So not only are they getting their wage from playing hockey, they're getting a wage from
And a career.
And a career from what you could say an ordinary job. So it's very attractive.
Almost make a transition into retirement.
Absolutely,
it's like you're professional, then all of a sudden, bang.
And not necessarily retirement in one way, but then also the chance of, like Jeff Legree, being coaching. Bringing that opportunity in. There's future career aspects to dropping down to the EPL, and the other point that I would say is, why is people not saying that the EPL are showing ambition and saying to these players?
Because as you just said, we live in a country where we always go for the negative.
I know that's but people, the EPL are saying to Myers, come on, we'll have you, or Jeff Legree, we will offer you this opportunity, this attractive package. So in my eyes, the EPL need a bit of credit for saying, do you know what, we'll offer these packages to you, and we'll try and sign these.
But
players.
on the other hand, as a pro sportsman who probably wants to reach the best level, and I'm thinking probably more of the younger lads who've dropped down.
I thought you were calling yourself a pro sportsman for a minute.
His shirt's up there.
He ought to be in it.
The likes of Rupert Quiney, Matt Toe, for example, who are still young lads. They've gone to EPL level when they're still young, and they very much hold a place in elite league teams. So I was surprised at Matt Toe, I must admit, because I thought he played very well for Brayhead last year. I was very surprised to see you drop down.
But with Quiney, as I'm sure we'll get to later, Cardiff was that much of a mess. You'd go for a bit of stability, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, that's a good point.
I think that the word stability, ice time, they all play a part in
we know, part of Norton's decision is to go and get more ice time, to go and improve himself. And that is what especially the young up and coming ones, should be doing.
I mean, I think in Norton's case is slightly different, because he was told he was going to be the 7th defenceman. Now, 7th defenceman, you're not going to get a deal of ice time.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's gone, you know what, I'm going to go where I'm going to get the action. But someone like Matt Toe will probably be a comfortable second line forward. Clan,
you would have thought so, wouldn't you? But you don't know what the Clan have got planned.
True, that is also very true. And of course they've signed Ben Davis, which is an excellent signing for them. I think excellent signing.
Very good signing. I mean, I think look, like I said earlier, we're not even halfway into the off season, and when we might see more players go to the EPL and. Who's to say that,
And I think we had a discussion on the way here saying, well, are we going to talk about the rosters so far? And I thought, it's a pointless exexercise, because it's just hardly any. There's only really Belfast.
I was going to say, there's only Belfast
who are looking very good, retained a lot of their players so far. So
different coach, though.
Different coach, but it'd be interesting to see how that one pans out. So. But as far as the development issue goes, I think that's something that's going to get a lot. It's going to get a lot of high profile over the next. It's certainly over this off season, certainly over the next season.
Yes, I think it's a long term.
I think it's one-to-one solution. Can't say for definite.
And I just hope that some investment comes in, because it's like you say, that documentary on Premier Sports, the desire is there. And in someone like Peter Russell, there's a coach who is, I think, good enough to take us to another level, a higher level. But it's just whether the investment, and B, the time is invested.
It's time, it's investment, it's setting realistic goals and targets, and in my eyes, these things are long-term projects. They're not going to be sold by the end of next season or the season after that. We have to really put a structure in place that goes, look, this is our target for 5 years, this is our target for 10 years, this is our target for 15 years.
And the other thing I think it has to be is realistic. Instead of, I think a lot of them have been quite pie in the sky before. We said, we'll be in Pool A by X. Well, that's unlikely. Let's make it realistic.
Exactly.
Let's aim to be in the top half of the division below first. Let's walk before we can run.
Build the foundations.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to have a look at some of the signings that have taken place, ones we haven't already looked at, and then we'll move into some of your Ask CW TV questions. So, Aaron, Darren, I'll come to you first.
Yes.
Who stands out for you as sort of the early season signings?
Well, I think let's start with today's announcement. To be honest, sorry, mate, but
I'm going to think so.
I would say, Gertson from Sheffield to Coventry is
That's a big move.
It's a big move
and a surprise. I was very. I saw Sheffield say he was leaving, which fair enough.
Yeah, but they didn't tell you where, which is strange.
Well, yeah, I know.
Yeah. Well, I think there must have been a bit of communication, because it came out that Gertson had re-signed to be in the Elite League this coming season.
And then
Sheffield said that he wasn't coming back, and then within about 10 minutes, Coventry said that they'd signed him. But I mean, that's a big pick-up for Coventry. So that sticks out for me. But then I would say, I think Clan have made some good early moves.
Absolutely.
People talk about the players that they've left, including obviously Tao, who we mentioned earlier. But I would have to say, the signings that they've made, I think they've improved. So I would say, they're the two big ones for me early doors.
Paul?
Covered everything, really. I mean, I think the other side of the Sheffield coin today, the return of Ron Sarich, Rod. Rod Sarich.
NHS Rod, yeah. I mean, I must admit, there was. I saw some rumours on Twitter last night about that one, and I thought, no, come on. And then this morning, it's like, okay. That was a surprise.
I thought it was a very nice birthday present from the Sheffield Steelers, but I think as well, Dustin White-Cotton leaving Belfast, has to be, especially to go to
Germany 3.
Germany 3.
Yeah. It's either a money thing or a lifestyle thing. I would have thought.
Well, played in there.
Yeah.
I mean, no doubt I'll be proved wrong, but Hull look like they've signed a decent netminder. But the two other players they've signed recently, I mean, the one, the Turcotte,
the guy they signed from Strasbourg.
He's played in leagues I've never even heard of.
I mean, on that, and I'm sure we'll probably mention Cardiff in the SCWTV in a minute, but Bounds to Cardiff.
That's a big sign.
That's
very interesting. See how
it is.
I mean, you don't want to do teams in that conference down. He's moving up. He's going to be playing against teams who are going to be expected to be at the top of the league. Of the best players week in, week out now.
I think that's an interesting
test for him.
And I think that's what he pretty much said that in on Twitter, and when he said he was leaving, it was to test. It was to test.
And it goes back to what we were talking about: players wanting to test themselves, and that's what you want to see.
And the thing is, he's now Great Britain's #1 netminder after the World Championships, so he needs to keep at that level. And I think for me, Belfast looking strong again with a lot of retentions. I think Panthers signing Farmer was a big signing. Keeping Lakovic was another big signing, because I think he could have been tempted away. So keeping him for another year, I would fully expect he won't be with us the following season, though. I think he will try his luck elsewhere. And I think again, Bounds is a very interesting one.
I remember the big signing there.
What's that?
Craig Holland going to.
I must admit that was really surprising.
It did actually shock me. I thought, he's going to be in Edinburgh forever. I know what it is.
What?
It's the evil monkey. He's moving to get away from the evil monkey in his closet.
Family Guy joke for those who are just staring at the screen going, what are they talking about?
I think,
well, that's normal.
To be fair, though, like we've seen a bit of inter-team player movement. I think there'll be a bit of that still to come out.
I think you're right. I think there are moves.
I think there's moves there
to be made. And I think we're probably going to talk about it earlier, but we touched on it earlier. The fun that was had in Cardiff last season is going to be if I played for Cardiff and I got that going on around me, it'd put doubts in my mind. And somebody else comes and says, "Yeah, come and play for us."
Yeah,
you'd think about it.
Yeah.
Well, just very briefly on that, because I know we're going to move on, but this is what interested me, is when like Davis moved, and obviously Smith moved to Coventry, Simsey came out and said these aren't long-term moves. They're implying that when Cardiff get their new arena,
they're going to
go back. But to be fair, if the circus gets a bigger tent, but the circus is still the circus.
That one,
yeah.
I like that.
There's no punchline.
Would you still be a part of it? It doesn't matter that you've got a new shiny tent. It's still.
I think a lot of it depends if Paul Reagan is still in charge. I think we'll move on to our CWTV because we've got an awful lot of questions about Cardiff. I mean, Clan Manal, Exodus from Cardiff Devils, fallout from last season. Andrew Birrell, Colorado Flyer, he says, what's your thoughts on what's happening at Cardiff? We just got Panthers banter. Is Reagan going to have to skate to try and fill the roster up? Lots and lots of questions about Cardiff, and it just seemed to be an exodus.
Well, look, you would say that if they still re-sign some of their top-end players that played there last season, they will still have a decent team.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose the other way of looking at it, the other side of the coin is, this is a team that finished 9th. They didn't make the playoffs. Maybe a clear out was needed.
Oof. Well, look,
they've already got rid of the coach.
You've got players like Matt Myers, a Brit, top end Brit.
Mark Richardson,
is he? Are they going to re-sign? You hear rumours about Matt Myers, you hear rumours about Telford, you hear rumours about possibly back here. You hear that it's an option on a second year. Are they going to re-sign? You've got your Faulkners, you've got your Beerbriers. Are they going to come back? People that you would associate with the Cardiff Devils. They are Cardiff Devils players.
Look at all the stuff, the whistle blowing almost, that's been coming out of Hull recently. Yeah. Hull are still re-signing people. So does that mean that it's not as bad in Hull as it is in Cardiff?
Well, this is the thing, you won't, and then you go back, Barnes has left Hull and he's gone to Cardiff.
Frying pans and fire springs.
This is the thing, so a lot was expected of Cardiff last season, and they
underperformed spectacularly.
There's not much more you could say about that. But in that sense, anything they do this coming season then has to be an improvement, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
For me, the thing about Cardiff is it's if you start to see your Matt Myers, your Faulkners, your Beerbriers, even your Richardson, not being there next season, then I think you have to possibly read into the fact that last season has had a bigger effect on the longer term aspect of the Cardiff Devils. But again, it's only time will tell, won't it?
Completely different change of tack there. We've got a question from Luke Smith, who I believe is a Stingrays fan. He says the average fights a season is about 137. This year was only 104, and there were plenty of tough guys in the league. Do you think there's any reason for this? Is the league getting stricter, and if so, is this a good or bad thing?
I think he needs to get out more.
Yeah, we like a stat.
We like a stat. Come on. We do like a stat.
I'm just disappointed with the ones I come up with, they're always wrong.
Exactly.
Ask me this time next year. Let's see what the figures are. I mean, because 1 year could just be an aberration. It could be any of those things or none of them. Ask me next year.
I think we all know that fighting does have some staunch opponents, but it does tend to put a few bums on seat. People do go. I mean, I get asked at work, people who've never been at ISOC before, is there a fight every game?
But you tell me to play.
She might not like it, but my mother loves the fights.
She loves
the fight. There's sorry about that, mother dear, but she does. And for me, it's disappointing. I think and the problem that take a Panthers Sheffield for example, right? You've got players on both sides that are willing to drop the gloves if needed and willing to stand up for themselves and their teammates. But it's almost like, if I do, then am I going to give an advantage to the other team? But then the other aspect of it is, look at Salter's Keith down here, where Belfast fans in Keith will say, well, my shirt was Salter's shirt was ripped, so I couldn't grab on correctly, but I'm sorry, there was only ever going to be one winner in that fight. And you look at the reaction that gave A, Salters, B, his teammates, and C, the arena. You can say the league's getting stricter, but there is still a place for fighting in hockey.
But I think the point, the key phrase in what you said then was, if needed. Because, I've got nothing at all against two blokes having a fight if one of them winds the other one up, something happens, they're going to go, or somebody wants to, but these things, let's go from the first face off. It's just pantomime. They might as well do it in the interval.
Somebody does a bad hit, and then somebody says, right, I'm having you for that. That's what
I think if you look back at last season, and I try not to, it'll be remembered, I think, for two things. One is Belfast's dominance in the league. Cups, not so good. And the other thing is Murray Hansen.
There was. I don't think there's ever, for a long time, there's not been as many suspensions as there were last season. There was a lot of bans last season.
Yeah, but were there suspensions through fighting? I would say
no. It was mainly hit to the heads, wasn't it?
It's checking to the heads and stuff. So, in that sense, the fighting aspect didn't really have to be affected. What it properly did, and this is just my opinion, it made players scared and in fear that if they did initiate a fight or take part and be involved in a fight, then Murray Hansen would then deal more punishment. And I think that's probably the fine line that Hansen, and the whole disciplinary review system, etc., needs to learn from last season coming into the coming season.
I've just realised something talking about Murray Hansen. This is probably the first time we've ever recorded on a Tuesday night in ages. And we're recording a day later and still nothing's happened. We've got the Rod Sarri stuff.
Wow, exactly. There'll probably be a blockbuster signing in the morning.
Any time about a quarter of an hour.
Final one then comes from David Carnell. You can only sign one non-Panther player from the Elite League last year. Who and why? I know who mine's going to be, so
I'll let you start.
Let me start. I would have Ducey from Hull. I think one of the things we were missing last season was a sniper, an out-and-out sniper who could put the puck in the net. That guy knew where the net was, and I think there was him and Tendler at Hull, both very, very high in the scoring charts. But I think Ducey just had that little bit more about him, that little bit more playmaking ability, and for me, he'd be the one I'd take.
Took a decent penalty shot as well.
Yeah, very much so. Yes, very much so. I think Craig Kowalski's still looking for his jock after that one.
What a charming image that is.
No. Age before beauty.
Actually, I'm going to be serious now. It's not as a joke. No, I'm still going to do it. Seriously, possibly Ryan Ginand. The boy Tony.
Good chat.
Because as much as we hated him, you'd have loved him if he played for you. But today, I'd sign Steve Gertson. You want to know why?
Why?
Because we would end up upsetting two lots of fans. See, that would be the perfect line to end on, but he's spoiled it. Go on, beat that. Go on.
I'm not going to pick. I think the two serious people that he picked in Ducey and Jinan quality, and I think most other teams would take them. I'll probably take it on a different slant, and I'll probably say two people. I know you only say one, but Craig Peacock,
good shout.
Brit, and as Belfast, and I think even Todd Kelman has said he was just a massive part of them winning the league last season. and I'd even say Keith.
Yeah, I think he was one I was toying.
I'm not being funny, but you know, not to harp back onto last season too much, but we spoke to the guys, you know, at playoff weekend. On that Sunday, that guy could not walk, and yes, he dressed and didn't
Couldn't physically
skate.
ice.
He couldn't. Yeah, he dressed. He was on that bench, and he still came out at the end of each period to speak to the ref, whether he was moaning or not, or saying the right things. I'll leave that. But those type of players they're rare.
They're worth their weight in gold.
You know,
It was still better than Jeff Swears, wasn't it?
it was. On their third line, you know, he's not a top line player, but by God, you take Adam Keefe out of that team.
To quote Neil, the coach Russell, the heartbeat of the team. Ding.
Do you know what? In my eyes, he's certainly got the X factor.
Yeah,
he really has.
He really has.
No, but I mean, I would just a different slant on it there. I would say Peacock or Keefe for me.
Yeah. And I think before we morph into another fan media, I think we do.
I'm not tanned enough.
We better end it there. So thanks for joining us. We will hopefully do another one of these. I think sometime in the off season, probably July or so, depending on what happens.
Yeah.
But
depends if we re-sign Jordan Fox or not.
You never know. You never ever know. But if we're not back until if we're not back until the start of the season, enjoy the rest of the summer, and we'll see you then.
The